Welcome competitors and sponsors of Division II Marketing Design to the Texas UIL Theatrical Design State Contest. And it's less ceremonious than it would have been in person, but that does not in any way reflect on the accomplishment that you guys have this year. Probably of all of the years, this is one that's been so difficult to navigate in our world. And you all are survivors. You have come through all of the adversity and managed to arrive at the championship level of your art at your age in your school situation. And that needs to be celebrated. And we apologize that it's not as bravado as we would have wanted it to be, but we wanted it to still be special for you. And so please know from the bottom of my heart that I am so glad that you're here. And we also wanted you to get to meet your judge, because that's part of the benefit of getting to go to state, is getting that one-to-one conversation time with her. And we can't completely facilitate that. We can at least gather together and get some information and share it with each of you and just put some faces to it and feel a little bit more personal. I'm going to read you a little bit of her bio, because this is how you know how qualified she is to do this job, okay? Because Sharla Cowden is quite notoriously good at what she does. So I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to read a little paragraph of it. Sharla Cowden has been the head of the theater management program at the University of Evansville for over 2 decades and coordinates the national recruiting efforts for the department and the marketing of the theater season's productions. And at University of Evansville, she teaches theater management, arts marketing, and arts leadership, as well as independent studies and special topics within the fields of arts management. And what you need to know about that is that not only can she tell you how to do this very successfully, she can give you all kinds of advice on it, but she can also help to connect you. If you all of a sudden find out that this is your jam and that you really love this and you want to do it, she also recruits the best of the best to come and do it with her and to teach you further and to set you up to do this for the rest of your life. So I don't know how to connect you in the world any better than that, because she's great at what she does and she's great at sharing it. And I want you to have all the time in the world with her. So without further ado, Miss Sharla.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate that. And welcome to everybody. Yes, it is graduation weekend here at the University of Evansville. And I do have to brag on the fact that I have 4 theater management students who are graduating and going into the field of arts marketing and management. And all 4 are graduating today with full-time jobs ready to go to next week. So that's pretty exciting, especially in the middle of the pandemic, y'all. Well, I will have to say that I was really so very impressed by the work that you all did this year. And I kept thinking to myself, you talk about resilient, you talk about how to use downtime and be creative. I thought across the board, we had such really strong entries. And of course, that's why you've been selected at the state level. So it has been really hard, actually. And I'm not finished writing my critiques, and I hope that you will find all of those helpful. But I thought maybe I'd just start a little at first about some just general things that I saw overall. So if you want to turn your cameras on, that's fine. If you'd rather keep them off, that's okay too. We can all be a little bit of suffering from Zoom fatigue, but I would encourage you to just write down some general notes that I'm going to give you this afternoon. And then I do hope that you'll ask some questions and we can just kind of have a conversation about the state of arts marketing and design and all of that together. I want to start with talking about your inspiration art. I mean, again, across the board, I thought people, there's only one that's doubled up that chose the same piece of art. And I thought that was really quite amazing. And just, I thought there were just, such great through line. Everyone really paid attention through line. And I could tell through everything you did, how that inspiration art really inspired you. And I think that's really important. I will say that I thought there were a couple of times where it got to be a little bit too much about the inspiration art, and your justification didn't talk about how it's going to relate directly to your show. So that's something that you do want to make sure that you're relating that directly to your own show. I think next on posters, here are my little hot tips on posters, right? My little hot tips on posters are asking yourself, when was the last time you stood in front of a poster and wrote down information? It's been a long time since I did that, right? So when you're thinking about posters, thinking about how clear you can make things, pass it 3 or 4 times a day. And so maybe that's as much time as they have to read it, right? So what's the number one thing we need to know, right? Who, what, when, where, and why. And so when you're thinking about who, it's going to be that league theater, your own theater, and then what. And so, the title of your show has to be the largest text on the page. Really striking graphics throughout is really important to kind of draw your eye in. And then just little tricks as far as things like, I always say, design your poster and now go back and look at it and take off anything that doesn't give the reader more information or clarify information. And I'll give you a weird little tip like that. Instead of May 6th, 7th, 8th, those THs on there, don't do anything. Would I look, if you took those THs off and it said May 6, 7, 8, would I still know that you're talking about dates? Absolutely, right? Weird little things like that. I even am like, I'm a 7 p.m. I'm not a 7:00 p.m. girl. I'm even an at sign, May 6, 7, 8 at 7 p.m. And then let's see, what other things I could take off of there. There was another weird little thing, phone numbers. So you don't ever need it to say phone : and then a telephone number, right? If I just put that telephone number on there, would you know that it's a telephone number? Absolutely. Same with email, things like that. I even suggest you look at taking off things like a lot of people would like to write League High School presents : What is that colon doing? Nothing, just another piece on there. So the more that you can take off of that poster, the better. And then I kind of want to talk a little bit about margins, right? And so when you have that margin, you need to, that box in the margin also gets its own margins within that. So what I mean is, this is really done more in programs, I think, than it is on posters. But so let's put that aside. I'm sorry, let me back up. Let me finish talking about posters. So on the posters, when you have a margin, remember that the inside of that margin, you need to keep your words away from the edge of that color. So you need some breathing space in there. And I tell my students all the time, they're like, I don't know why you're so afraid of white space. You're just so afraid of white space. But the true thing is that when you're thinking about visual imagery, white space is another way of helping the reader's eye know where to go to find what's next. And that's your job when you're designing, leading the person's eye through it. And so I always encourage people to never use more than 2 fonts. So you should have a headline text, and then you should pick makes it easier. So then let's move on to when we're talking about programs. So especially in programs, I think that, you don't ever want to put, especially if you've got kind of a hard to read font that you're going to use for your headline, and it's right for especially Man of La Mancha. It has a certain kind of look, medieval kind of feel to it. But maybe then that's your headline on each of those pages. And then what you want to do, the rule for programs for me is, can I pick it up and read it in a dark theater, right? And you should think about that. People are going to be sitting down in a dark theater, and your job is to make sure that that program is a useful tool, right? Your job as a marketer is to have not only to put butts in seats, right? But to put the best prepared butts in seats. And so as they're sitting there beforehand, I always say that, like, you have to, as a theater manager, you have to love these artists, right? And so these artists that are on the stage are getting ready to go out there, and they are getting ready to perform and just kind of leave it all on the stage, right? And so you want to make sure that your audience, your job is to make sure that your audience is the most prepared for that, right? So they're in a good mood. They have the information they need. They know what to expect. Things are easy to find in a program. And so as you're working through, just kind of always keep that in mind, right? So I think one of the critiques that I gave was somebody had like the students' names on the left and then their characters on the right, right? Well, if someone sees a character and they hear their name, they're going to go to the program to see who's playing that, right? And so you want to put the characters' names on the left and the students' names on the right. And that's just a little trick that some people might think, well, what does it matter? Well, that's why the psychology, people read left to right. And if you're looking down and who's going to play this role, and you want to be able to see that and then read left to right there. Okay, so as far as then the text in programs, again, I think choose your headline font. A lot of people believe that you should have a serif font for a headline and a sans serif font for your copy text. I don't know that I actually believe that, but that is a suggestion. That is a design tool that some people do believe in. I think one trap that I saw over and over again that I thought, oh, I wonder why everybody's doing this a little bit. And that is when you have a lot of text that's on a page, people are centering it instead of, and that's actually hard to read when you're reading it like that. So you really want to, I encouraged on several critiques, I was like, try it in a justified format. Making it flush left and then ragged right. And I think you should try some, but everything else is very symmetrical. And so I think you should try to explore doing some more justification on all of those lines there. And I think you might like the look of it a little bit more. I made a note here about marketing calendars, right? So a marketing calendar is an internal document, right? And that's important for you to learn what is an external document and what is an internal document. External should be creative and beautiful, and internal should be down and dirty and just a useful document, right? That anybody could pick up and use. It doesn't need to be beautiful, err on the side of making it workable as opposed to making it beautiful, right? That's where we should see, and it should be clear and easy to understand. Like, oh no, I have to stay on brand. And this is another chance for me to show my creativity. Your creativity should be shown in that area as far as, is this readable and can my whole staff understand? If I get hit by a bus today, then can somebody pick up this document and go to work? So always err on that being a working document. I did think across the board, People's Studies Guide, you did such a great job of balancing educational and entertaining. And that's hard to do sometimes, right? And so I think everybody really across the board did a really nice job of that. And I think a lot of people did make it very show specific. I think don't miss the opportunity to make it production specific. And what I mean by that is what makes this Man of La Mancha your Man of La Mancha? What makes this different than from any time anybody else has seen Man of La Mancha production? And some of you, when you did include your inspirational art, and find opportunities to include other design elements. And I realize that we're not talking about realized productions here, but there were some people who were able to do things like put costume renderings from the actual production. And I don't know if they did those or, whether they were, maybe their friend was doing the costume design portion for the same prompt. But that was really helpful. And those are really neat things that make it production specific. Those are kind of my overall things that I am really looking for out there, and that striking key art, and then carrying through that art on every piece that you're doing. I think people really did. I will say that this is like my third or fourth maybe time to judge state. And I thought for the most part, everybody did a really great job of carrying through their artwork on every piece. And that was really great. But I'm ready for questions if we've got questions out there. Rachel, do you have anything in the chat?
No, I had a teacher, somebody was locked out and we're trying to get them in. I think somebody was locked out and we're trying to work on that, but that's all I have on the chat.
You can use your virtual hand or just raise your hand if you got your camera on.
Or you can still use the chat if you want to too. Oh, here's one. How do you recommend finding a way to balance poster graphics?
Yeah, so I think that, and that was another thing when you're, especially, I actually think that an information banner is really helpful. And so sometimes what happens is you'll have a graphic and then you're trying to overlay your text on top of that. That can be what gets tricky about making something hard to read, right? So, you know, is in the middle, and then you have a banner, an information banner at the bottom, and that's where you put all of the important information. So what that does though is when somebody's just walking down the hallway, then that key art is what leads them into it, and then after the next period they walk back by it and they can read the information banner, right? They know where it is. But I think I think it does get really tricky when you're trying to float boxes and things like that. That can also cause like visual overload, right? As well, trying to find the information. Like, oh, the dates are over here, but the time's down here, and so I think that's why I'm a big believer in informational banners, whether they're at the top or whether they're at the bottom, or a little bit of both, a little thing, so that your key art's what's drawing them in, and then your eye, you're like, oh, obviously I'm supposed to look down here to read this.
Okay, here we go. What are some of the most entertaining study guide activities you came across either in this competition or for real productions?
Yeah. I'm a word search person, so I did love everybody put in a word search. And a lot of people did like a maze, like, help, want to do this and find, save her. And those were really fun. A couple of people used QR codes to link to, in-depth articles and things like that, or learn more about the author. And I thought that was a really interesting way to approach it. And it's also interesting too, and I really thought about this as I was going through some of the study guides. Like half of it is obviously geared toward like you were going to hand it to a student, right? And then sometimes some of the information was like, okay, teachers, divide the class into two, right? Like two sections and have them do this. And I was like, oh, that's hard because who is your something like,
right.
And so maybe if you were going to stick talking to students and having it something, get your friends together, or like divide the class in two, so that you're not, you're not speaking directly to a teacher in the middle of the kind of that student study guide. But I love I thought it was just, again, very creative across the board. And, but I was really impressed by those people who found the opportunity to make it production specific. Like, here's why we set our production in this time period, or here's what we were trying to accomplish with that. I know that when we do, we have a group called Rogan Peasant Aces who do Shakespeare in the area, tour around and do Shakespeare in the area high schools. And so that study guide, is very specific to the shows, to the scenes that we're doing from Shakespeare. And we really do try to link them to online videos and online resources. Hang out in their bedroom for, have a shelf life, if you will, that they can just find in their room a year from now and be like, oh yeah, I remember when I saw that. So.
I want to throw a question in here myself, and I asked this also of our Division I judge. Is there anything that you're seeing trend-wise in the marketing world, that we have not embraced? Because I know we put the study guides in thinking that some theaters are having to promote to schools as part of what they do and that kind of a thing. We've done specialty events, that you're coordinating events to promote things. We have specialty items for promotionals, not to be confused with swag. But we're wondering if there's any areas of marketing that seem to be catching on, being new techniques or new strategies that people are using, especially with the social media or whatever, like different things that are happening and that we could be incorporating into our contest as well, or other trends that you're seeing in marketing, just in general.
I think last year, as far as like the streaming part go, right, that was pretty wild. I'm ready to never see another play on Zoom as long as I live. But we did have to delve into that, and of course with streaming rights and things like that. I think one I don't know if I would call it a trend or not, but one thing is inviting people into the deeper, a lot of talk about deeper community engagement, right? So how are we inviting our audiences into even the rehearsal process? So Woolly Mammoth Theater in Washington, D.C. has, and they have been doing this for years, where people can kind of stream in and watch some of their rehearsals, or they will release some rehearsals. And it is for kind of diehard people in a way who really want to explore, theater on a different level, right? And you just have those patrons, but, and a lot of talk about how we are including, different audiences. How are you reaching different audiences in your community, right? And so who are those community leaders that can help you get access to those different audiences? And then are we doing whatever we can to make it as accessible as possible? And so, a lot of things have been talked about as far as like, well, are we going to continue to stream some things because access is easier if people can do it from their homes. Now, we are all probably lovers of live theater, and we want to be back in that theater together and sitting there and having that communal experience. I'm a little bit perplexed as to how people are going to react. We made the decision that we were not going to produce anything live this last year. We were going to, our rule is we follow industry standards. So whatever Broadway's back. And so everything we did this year was on Zoom or outdoors in the theater tent. And so, we did have a lot of people who were very happy to be able to access that from different parts of the country. And so that's a little bit of what's next for us. Are we going to continue to maybe do a hybrid of those two things? And we're still in talks about that because we just don't know yet. We're planning on being live next semester, maybe with reduced capacity, but we'll see. And maybe if everything continues and everybody keeps getting vaccinated, then maybe we'll be back full 500 seat theater. But right now we're planning on 125 in the audience.
Sweet. One of the things that was brought up in that session was also, he said there's a trend with I guess they're kind of like trailers or like little quick media things that are, like that people can post on a website where and some movement to it, sort of the things that people are kind of embracing a little bit of that.
That's true. I tell you where I have always come down on that, in that it's a little bit tricky because you're not allowed to say words, and that is where you can really. I'm a real stickler for following the copyright rules, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so there are rules where, and a lot of people do just ignore it, but there are rules where no words from the play can be spoken, right? So then you got to deal with you're just seeing clips of people in rehearsal, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you on the problem that I have on my end is my designers are not willing to have any costume or any scenic element that is not finished in a promo video, right? And so then when is that promo video being shot? What is the turnaround time on it? And when can we release it? So it's it's kind of this vicious circle. But yeah, I think promo teasers are certainly a trend.
With ways to create those without using the actual clips, I don't know, still images or just certain things that you can come up with that tease it or whatever. But that's been something that, that's something for us to play around with, because we're always also wanting to keep our kiddos in our contest up with what's going on and what's out there, and giving them that opportunity to try it out before they get further along the road.
I would say one thing is another thing is word art, being another way to using word art as far as, not doing a graphic, having the title. That's something to play with maybe sometime in a prompt would be, you're not creating the graphic, but the title becomes the graphic itself, is one of the tricks that I have students have to work on in their arts marketing class.
So the title is the graphic.
The title is the graphic. And so one of the things that we have a secondary stage in the May Studio Theater, and that's our student directed pieces there. And so I did graphics for the main stage shows, And then for the studio shows, we do word art graphics there. And so it gives it its own identity.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's see, I have another question here. It says, we got a note about making the program more colorful and tied into the aesthetic of the poster and everything else. Do you think it's wise to make it closest to a study guide or keep it simple and black and white? It was a question. And then also, what do you look for in a great justification paper? That's the same question. So it's a twofer.
Twofer. All right. Well, let's talk about the program first. I will say that I am a little bit old school, that I like black text on white paper because I, again, believe that program is a working tool for the audience, right? So I think, your cover can be fabulous, and maybe you've got, maybe there are pages in there that are really striking, but when it's important information like who's in the cast, crew, easy to read fonts on a white page. And especially as I get older, I will say, I really do appreciate that more and more. And so I think there are ways to kind of really tie it in inspiration wise, but I do believe in the black and white there. And again, it's just because I believe it. I think our industry, it is the industry standard. And I think that's what we should always be striving for. And so, Broadway's not looking for ways to make their programs also double as, hats and things like that. Like you fold it this way and it turns into a little hat, and nobody needs that, right? So again, just making them useful as well. For the justification papers, I really, really enjoyed reading the justification papers. And I told Rachel, I was like, I'm spending a lot of time on these. And I think it's because I'm really into these justification papers. And I thought across the board, people really did a nice job there. I had a lot of misses on the justification papers. I think you did a really nice job of clearly talking about how the inspirational art led to the design, which led to the inspiration board, which led to the poster, which led to the program, which led to the study guide. I think the miss, again, across the board almost was when people tried to get too creative with their marketing calendars, right? And again, I understand that instinct, but keeping that as a working document and just branding it slightly, but not you don't need to prove how creative you are in that area. But I loved, and the justification papers, especially, I will say one of the myths may be of how, like any conversation with your director, right? So like marketing should be a part of that collaboration team, right? This should be a part of that creative team. And so, what conversations, and again, I know it wasn't realized production, but with scenic costume and lighting and sound, right? And projections or whatever it is that's going to be involved, you want to make sure that what you're marketing is what people are going to be seeing when they come to the theater there.
Right. You want to make sure that you're not setting them up for something they're not going to see later.
Exactly.
With that. Let's see. Are there certain things that you recommend in order to be more accessible? For example, fonts or colors, like other things, like when you talk about that accessibility or that instant ability to see things and get that news or whatever that's out there, besides black on white.
Yeah, no, and I do. And I think it does go back to very easy to read fonts. And also the size of your text. Like I think, in programs, it can get really too small sometimes. I did not actually see that happen a lot. I don't think anybody had fonts that were really too small to read in anything that I saw. And so I thought I was really happy with that.
Here we go. What would you recommend as some great computer programs or websites for beginner students interested in graphic design?
Yeah, great. So I'm kind of an Adobe person. So all of my students are, working in Photoshop, and we're InDesign people and Illustrator and all of that. And I think anytime that you can work in those programs, those are the ones that are kind of, again, the industry standard that when you go into market, those are things that you're going to be working on. And so, if you're able to take advantage of any of those resources or take advantage of any of those classes, that's where to start. Some of you are real artists though. I mean, that is a true thing. Like some of you are really beautiful artists. And so don't stop experimenting with your watercolors or, you know, there was somebody did some tell like, oh, this person is a designer, right? Or this person is an artist. And both were equally as exciting to see. So I encourage you to keep up with the artistry of it as well.
Okay, now we need some clarification. It says, when you say that the marketing calendar doesn't need to be creative, does that mean you don't want it to be decorative at all?
I think
you realize that this is like what we're looking at here is we're narrowing in on what's going to win. Okay, so
I promise I'm not throwing anybody out because of your marketing calendar and how creative you were of that. I think the marketing calendar should look like a calendar. Let me put it that way, right? I think it should look like a calendar, and I think it should be something that you could hand out to your team, and your team would know that the press release is due on this day, and we're going to put up posters on this day, and we're going to interview with this team for that information, right? I shouldn't have to be like, oh, there's this legend over here, and if it's pink, then I have to go find all the pink on here, and that pink means this, right? I understand it, and I'm here to tell you, I was impressed with some of the creativity on some of the calendars. I just think it is you accepting the fact that there are external marketing and there's internal marketing, and you have stakeholders in both situations. Your external stakeholders are the people you are trying to pay or trying to get to pay to come see your show. And your internal stakeholders are the people who are working for you, but they are real stakeholders, and they have to be empowered, and they have to be led and given the right information to succeed. Because you as a marketing director are not going to be the only person working with that marketing calendar, right? Like, please tell me that you don't want to hang up every poster there is to hang up, right? You want to have a staff. And
this is not your personal to-do calendar.
Right. So that's all I see. You know, I mean, I do like a little bit of the graphic on there somewhere. It just doesn't need to be a fully, beautifully, creatively piece.
Okay, let's see. How much detail about promotional events do you think should be included in the marketing calendar?
You know, a little bit of that I think can go in the justification, right? So I think in your justification paper, if you're going to even put a marketing campaign outline in the justification paper, and then it'll make sense to me when you're on that when you're on that calendar, right?
Right, because we usually say whatever is in the justification paper is what should appear in your calendar. So there should already be a correlation. But I will say, and especially for marketing, because I feel like they have to convey so much more information in their 2 pages, that some of them have looked for opportunities of how to expand their information locations and get them out there, because, you know, of wanting it to be somewhere where you can see. It's not, I said 2 words about in my justification paper because I only had that many words and that many pages, but I put some more over here so you know what I really meant. And so like some hints of that. So I think that's kind of what the question is
well,
addressing.
and you know, maybe that's solved by, you know, the top half of your calendar being the calendar, right? And you know, press release, and then down here where people, you know, want to do legends. So like, what is meant by press release, or like, these are the distribution outlets that can be listed down here, you know?
Right.
And I have, you know, when I'm training younger publicists, you know, we have a publicity checklist, right? And that's really helpful. So it's like, you know, this date, and we meet, like, this date is when it goes to ACE nodes, which is like the campus distribution. This is when it's going to go to the Courier and Press. This is when it's going to go, you know, on the TV screens on campus and things like that. And so that's just, that's one way to do that.
Yeah, I was because there's different standard calendars, because some people do like a more of a bullet, you know, the UIL is famous for their bullet calendar of like the whole year laid out with all the bullets that happen, and they just list the days where something's going on, but it's still a bullet calendar the way people would read it. And then there's the square calendars and those, but
Right,
yeah.
right.
Other questions, let's see what else do we have here. Trying to think if there was something that we talked about in the other one. Oh, I know one of the things that people were talking about, we talked about in the other one a little bit, is that
it seems like the whole wide world is starting to narrow and want things simpler, graphics and things like that. I mean, they were talking a little bit about like the fact that like if you went to Subway, it used to be a different and now it's simplified, or things that have gone from, Kentucky Fried Chicken went down to KFC, like trying to make those really crisp brands that'll look good on an app screen or whatever. It's like there's some of those kinds of trends and things that you've seen. How much does other kind of marketing influence what we're doing in theater marketing?
I think always it does, really. I think that those are trends that you have to pay attention to. It's the same way with like, I pay attention every year to like, what are the Pantone colors of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something that I think about and pay attention to every year. And how to, again, make things cleaner, right? It's something that I'm always striving for. I had a patron say to me one time, they're like, I always know when the mailing's from you because of a bar that I, like a black bar that I use at the top of heading, or our logo is always in the right-hand corner, like it anchors the right corner, right? And so those are just things that over time helps people develop, you're developing your own aesthetic standard for your organization. And then it helps people identify with that. And then they feel in the know, right? And that's really all you're trying to do. Like you're really just trying to make people choose your theater as their theater, their place that they experience artistic and educational and entertaining works, And so I think anytime that you can kind of help establish that brand, you're developing brand equity for your organization, and you have those repeat customers. And so, yeah, the cleaner and clearer, I think, definitely plays into.
I love that. Yeah. It's continuing that branding. So it's like,
Absolutely.
I don't know what show it is, but I know it's your show.
Right, exactly. And I've had great experiences with your theater in the past. So I bet this show's going to be great too. How do I get tickets? Right. That kind of thing.
Let's see, another thing that we brought up in the other one as well, and I think that it serves well here too. Something that I hadn't really realized, and it's coming from a professor who's also a director, who was looking at it, and he used digital media to help pay his way through theater school. So he was like a digital artist or whatever first, and so he was doing all those different kinds of things. But now as a director, it's almost like his poster or his graphic or whatever he's putting together, it becomes his defining inspirational photo to carry forth in the production, where that poster like sums up the whole feeling of everything you want that play to be in one
immediately visible image that you can't get out of your head, that everything has to be like, would this happen? And what this poster says right here, it becomes the filter. But that gives that poster a whole lot of power. Yeah. But for him, it's that strong of an image. And it's like, he's kind of creating it to. I don't always realize how powerful our media is.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it gets trickier in that, like for instance, we're going to choose these 3 shows and I'm going to have that artwork designed before and out in the public to try to sell season subscriptions before the scenic designer and the director are even going to talk. Right. Yeah. But it becomes a little impossible when you're kind of forecasting more long range and when it's not kind of a one person making all of those decisions kind of thing. Yeah. So it does get trickier, because I've what I thought was going to be a show, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, we're going to do Greater Tuna set on Venus. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? Like you're killing me here.
Yes. That's a danger of season, like of having to know your whole season ahead of time. And then
worldwide pandemic comes around and then that was always my hard thing. Is like, I'm not really sure if I want to put a poster out yet, because I'm not really sure how this play is going to turn out. Yeah, it's hard to advertise ahead, but what we do. More questions, guys. You can ask them for real. You don't even have to send them to me in the chat. You can like push your unmute button and you can speak. For real. You can speak without, you can unmute your microphone and your letter can speak if you want to too. We can just hear you. if you like that idea.
And it's okay if nobody has any more questions too.
Yes, I always feel like we're forcing. It's like, okay, the crickets are out. But I also don't want, I always want to make sure we're waiting enough to where people kind of formulate them, because that's kind of how it works too. Any other ones typed to me? I like the idea of help, if there's any other resources and things that are out, creative in finding some of those resources. Is like, if your school doesn't have the resources to do
Some of the big name programs and things like that. Okay, well, if I don't have Photoshop, what else do I have that substitutes in and does some of the same stuff that does? A lot of good resources there that they've been able to share and talk about some different ones. I was talking about my kiddo that she did her entire entry for marketing on her phone because she didn't have a computer. So she was able to find apps and things that made it all happen on a phone. And so our kids are incredibly creative and resourceful. But then I love that we as a group and a culture, we share it and help to grow and continue going. Oh, questions. Here we go. What skills from UIL marketing do you think we can take to other career paths for the future?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I can go on about this because I believe that one of the reasons that people love to hire theater kids in any field out there, and I talk about this, I think one of the things is that theater kids understand deadlines. Show's going to open at 7:00 on Friday. You're not done at midnight, you're still there. Show's going to open at 7:00 on Friday. You understand a deadline. I think you don't find better work ethic that you do in theater kids. I think people being able to think on their feet is a theater kid thing. Being creative. I think that one of the things when you're talking about, the question was directly about marketing, right? Like what from the marketing? I think it makes you savvy consumers, right? Like understanding a little bit of the psychology behind it makes you a more savvy consumer in the world. And I think that's really important for whatever field you go into. And I think this is really true. Like, right now when you're being marketed to, right? It's not like somebody's tricking you into something.
I see you.
I see. Yeah. And so I think that I think that you become knowledgeable, and you can help others understand when things are just surface or when they're being like authentic experiences for you out there. And so I think that's important things to think about, even if it's not direct skills, like, maybe you're not going to use your theater marketing if you're working in a grocery store for this summer or whatever, right? But maybe how to design an end cap, right? And so maybe that looks better than it ever has in the past, right? And
I'm
so
telling you, the summer I worked for my grandparents' grocery store, their labeling was on point. I had the price signs like graphically beautiful.
Absolutely.
Like different things like that, or the specials and how they were posted. So definitely, yeah, you can't go back once you've learned.
In my mind was like, I don't care what you're going into, you're going to have to sell yourself somewhere.
Absolutely.
And so if you can sell, you're learning how, what kinds of things people are looking for, you're making information accessible. And if you can sell that, you can sell yourself into any job or situation that you want to place yourself into. So
right. And
it's a win-win.
That plays out in your resumes, so like theater marketing, going out there, you should have fabulous resumes. Don't over design them, but they should be easy to read, and like some of the same thing, headline font and a copy font, and where does my eye go next, and what could I justify on this page, what should be in bold, what should be in underline, things like that are really important to set you apart too. And then cover letters. I mean, anytime you're writing a justification paper, you'll be doing that same thing. And that's how you should think of a cover letter is how am I justifying the fact that I'm the best person for this job? Exactly. And you also have learned how to make the app. Applying for a job, the ask is, I look forward to setting up an appointment with you to have an interview, right? So it's that that's that assertiveness that you already have said, I believe in my product and I want you to come see it. And then when you're looking for a job, you're like, I am the product. I believe in me. I want you to hire me.
Perfect. Here's a question I like. I have a question about fundraising. How does marketing and development support each other? And can high schools learn from the professional and university level? Like, just in terms of, because it's business. And so like when we're thinking of from the high school level and then what you guys have to do in college level and then the professional level, how much of that is like fundraising?
How's that all related?
Yeah, a lot of it is. In fact, one of my seniors just did a whole paper on the overlap between fundraising and marketing. And so, yeah, it definitely overlaps. In the professional world, if you're talking about one of the nonprofit theaters in the country, so there's this organization called LORT, which is the League of Resident Theaters across the country. And so in Texas, we're talking about Dallas Theater Center, the Alley, things like that, right? And would be LORT theaters. And in the professional world, if you're talking about nonprofit theater, less than 50% of their income is earned, and that means buy tickets, right? So the vast majority is unearned income, which is actually grants and donations and things like that. And so it is really important. Like every bit of fundraising is marketing, and every bit of marketing is fundraising, right? And so I believe in this. There's this term called the audience engagement ladder. And so like your goal is to get 2 people to come to your theater in the first year. And if they do, and and they have a great time, there's still something crazy, like an 80% chance they'll just never come back. And that's so discouraging to think about, right? But as a marketing, if you can get them to come back again in that same year, then the following year, it goes down to 50%. Even if they come and they've had 2 great experiences, there's still only a 50% chance they'll come back in that second year. So then in that second year, you want them to come back again. So this is a slow kind of 5-year process. And then in that third year, you want them to be a seasoned subscriber. You want them to sign up for the whole year. In that 4th year, you want them to be a seasoned subscriber and you want to ask them for a donation, right? So they become a little bit deeper involved. In that 5th year, you want to be a seasoned subscriber. You want to ask them for a donation, like an annual donation, and then like a special funds donation for a project, a renovation project, or a scholarship or something like that. And then they reach this like upper level after that, which is they're called advocates, right? And those people are donors, they are subscribers, they maybe participate in our Adopt a Student program, maybe they main job is that they bring other people with them to the theater, right? Because still word of mouth is still the best marketing out there. And it is the only marketing that a marketing person can't control. So it's maddening, right? But if you've got those army of advocates out there working for you too, then they can really help you in that area. But that's why there is really no quick fixes when it comes to audience development. It really is a 5-year process that involves a lot of staff time, a lot of money. One of the reasons that I can spend. So the reason you want people to be subscribers is that I can spend maybe $1 getting someone a subscriber, right? Getting them to renew. It's a sheet of paper and it's talking about the shows, and it's another form for them to fill out, and they can send that back in or they can go online. Whereas if I'm trying to find a new person, buying online ads. And so it costs me almost 3 times as much to get someone in the door the first time than it does to get a subscriber to renew.
Cool.
It's a long process, but that audience engagement is really important. And whoever you're working for needs to understand that it takes time to develop and build those audiences.
Somebody needs to do that on the 4-year train of a high school experience. It's like you want your freshman theater parents engaged at one level.
Yeah.
It's like by the time they're seniors, that their parent or the parent, they're the president of this and that. And yet, that engagement level, it's like somebody needs to like take that, everything that you just said, and adjust it to the 4-year cycle of a high school rotation. You can get one of your students to write that paper.
Okay, I'll work on that next. I'll assign that. There we go.
All right, we still have a few more minutes. If you guys have any more questions, we're not going to force them out of you, but if you've got them, we're getting such great information today. It's like, I'm taking notes over here, y'all.
For the honor of being asked to be one of the judges. And if you do have any questions, you can always just email me directly too. I'm happy to answer questions for you. My email is really easy. It's just theater@evansville.edu, and they all come to me. So theater with an RE at evansville.edu, and I'm always happy to take your questions.
And so even when you guys have decided now that this is where you want to go to college and what you want to do, this is the lady.
Yeah,
She's the one to talk to.
Love to
And you can
meet
say, you know, when we met in our Zoom meeting
exactly.
back when we were at state together, she'll remember who you are and it'll be golden.
You bet.
Anything else, guys? Well, otherwise, oh, did I hear somebody? I thought I heard somebody. Wait. Maybe, no. I don't want to cut anybody off. I really don't. Well, all right. On that note, I do want to remind everybody that and we will not be opening up the critiques for you to read until Tuesday morning. So because the system, we're still finishing up getting all the critiques and everybody loaded in there. We will open those up for you to view your personal critiques on that Tuesday morning. Teachers will access through the portal just like you have been before, and their scores will be there for that. If you have any trouble with that, you know how to get a hold of me, and we'll figure it out, because the system is a little bit of a beast. But also this session, as well as other ones, if you want to see like the Division 1 session from on marketing or any of the other ones, you're more than welcome to log in and see those. Those will be up on the YouTube channel with UIL. And we're really excited to offer those as resources, because I think it's really fun. It's kind of like the people that stand on the fringe and like listen, even though they don't have a kid in the contest, but they learn all the secrets. Let's allow that a little bit, but you guys get to savor it first. And so still feel special. And again, I just want to make sure that just because we did this in Zoom and you could have done it in your pajamas, it doesn't make it any less special that you made it to the state chamber. Please, please, please pat yourselves on the back, give yourselves a hug. Remember this moment for what you've done in it, not by the way we had to settle for celebrating it. And I love all of you, and I look forward to seeing those of you who are underclassmen. I look forward to seeing your work next year, because I'm excited about the play that I will not tell you until Monday night. If you're seniors and you're heading off and you've been a part of our contest, congratulations and thank you and well wishes to you. We hope that you travel forward and do great things, regardless of what you're going into, that you'll use this and treasure this, and this will be a fond part of your memories. So that being said, I think we're out.
All right.
Love you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. This was very informative.
Good. Thank you.